Ladies and gentlemen, today is the 24th of August 2023. For those who may watch this video 5, 10, 30, 100 years from now. And for those who are watching my video on this very day, allow me to bring you to speed about a rather interesting trading behavior that has emerged. On TikTok, if you are from the future, which is a short form video service owned by ByteDance that hosts user-submitted videos ranging in duration from 3 seconds to 10 minutes, they call it bed rotting. It's a term that has come to be popularized on TikTok that means choosing to stay in bed all day as a form of self-care. While some may take this like some sort of rejection of productivity, and I abstain from any sorts of confirmation to the contrary or otherwise in agreement, many have found this kind of wasting away under the cozy comforts of a duvet as an opportunity to catch up on favorite series of movies, friends online, or some bedside snacks. But this is not what I am planned to talk about today. Welcome, my name is Victor for those who are new in this channel. Episode number 47 of Survive ended with the arrival of Dr. John Taylor and his compatriots at Professor Wilhelm Gutenberg's mansion in Max Vorstadt. The good professor settles down and Jake Daniels then wants to live in company with his men. We get to realize Alfred Bench has sneaked away to enjoy some lap dancing in Munich City, and that Professor Wilhelm Gutenberg tells of how his son Spencer was murdered by one Amadeus Kuba, a man we are aware is serving an 8-year prison sentence in Ukraine. Professor Gutenberg thinks Amadeus should have been on death row. He's not happy with the court verdict, would you? I mean, someone kills your child and is sentenced 8 years in prison? I don't think so. So Professor Wilhelm plans a revenge mission, and in fact, he takes no chances. So he may not forget the year Kiev will set free his son's killer. He changes his debit card's PIN to read 2008. Anyways, let's wait and see what transpires when that time comes. In the meantime, Dr. John Taylor appears to have made himself quite at home in Professor Wilhelm's mansion. We see him feigning passivity, yet he surveys the interior of his mansion. At one moment, the author says Dr. Taylor walks across the room and plants himself onto a couch. This triggers my memory a little, so folks, allow me to move on to something much more interesting. Ever had a friend come visit you and spend a night on the couch? Or let me put it this way, have you ever spent a night or two on a friend's or relative's couch? Well, I have, several times in fact. And frankly speaking, it felt really soothing. And I know the experience of many of us align, hoping not to sound like a weirdo. In fact, majority say they had slept better than they would in a guest's room. And what if I told you there is a word for that? It's called couch surfing.
Couch surfing.
Staying with a series of different friends or relatives, sleeping on their couch for free. Cambridge Dictionary defines couch surfing as the practice of traveling around and staying with people you don't know who advertise their homes on the internet. It's in fact a cheap form of lodging used mainly by college students, where one stays on acquaintances' couches rather than a hotel. And tell you what, back in 2004, 4 men took this couch surfing thingy a little more seriously. Casey Fenton from New Hampshire, United States, Daniel Hofer, Sebastian Lee Tuan, and a man called Leonardo Bassini began a small passion project called Couch Surfing, with an email to a group of students in Iceland who replied that people anywhere in the world would want to share their homes with strangers, or as they put it, friends you haven't met yet. Couchsurfing as a company then was born, envisioning a world made better by travel and travel made richer by connection. With Couchsurfing, you can now stay with locals in every country on earth, travel like a local, stay in someone's home, and experience the world in a way money cannot buy. As such, couch surfers share their lives with the people they encounter, foster cultural exchange and mutual respect. But this, folks, is not the intention of the Shrine Tango movement. The STM's goal is not to bring Dr. John Taylor to couch surf at Professor Wilhelm's mansion, not at all. He is installed at the mansion for the so-called X-Files secret chain. So let's go on and see what happens. A metallic draped wardrobe with a sliding door on my left that I assumed on this first date to be a fine lady's dressing platform triggered episodes of more curiosity in me. I walked across the room and planted myself onto a couch. While logs cracked at the fireplace, I lowered my PDA onto the floor and placed my cell phone next to it. Corpse-like, I remained glued at the television screen before me. A little rat eyeing my shoes plucked my attention from the screen. It betrayed in the meantime an incomprehensible resentment against the hazards at which we had drawn conclusions. "John, your luggage has arrived." This news thrust my back upon the couch. Professor Wilhelm Gutenberg himself had relayed this news, and I believed it was his steps coming up the stairs. "Sir," I said, "how is that possible?" A popsicle in his mouth, Professor Wilhelm replied, "Let me add no more misery to the surprises that have already been had. Go check out the stuff downstairs yourself, sir." He quickly sneaked behind the fuming chamber and reappeared through a glass door beside me about a minute later. "John," he said, handing me a glass of wine, "I'll give you leave to prowl about this lovely architectural wonder. Here is a toast to save days." "Any scotch at your convenience, sir?" I asked. "Well, sir," he said, withdrawing his eyes from me and pursuing with his fingers the narrow binding of a manuscript placed on the table. "Amanda does replenish scotch first thing on Wednesdays. Now come, a toast to this cause." A curious eye revealed the unmistakable scribbling of the world's most mysterious book, the Voynich manuscript, reliably dated to a few decades before the invention of the printing press. It was a creation of either of the following three men: Leonardo da Vinci, Roger Bacon, the 13th century philosopher, or Mr. Wilfred Voynich himself. But as to why Professor Wilhelm's interests were inclined to such codex, I had no clue. The fact was, that corner of the room was a peculiar one in its properties. There was a perception of the anguish of being unpleasantly stalked by its peculiar inclusions in the repetition of imagining what they really signified. As I undertook to make my first sip of the wine, the man drew a candle. He pressed it against his chest and stood glued at the television. My trials were not over. In the storms of basic instinct, suspicion would be an enviable circumstance to befall a man whose effort should attend to his survival. The Wilfred Voynich manuscript had to be dug into, but what for? So that marks the end of my today's episode. Up until the next one, that is episode number 49. Goodbye. Auf Wiedersehen.